During a trip to Thailand, while having sex with my girlfriend, I suddenly went crazy and pulled me into a strange series of events, revealing my Thailand. Chapter 1. White Snow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. My name is Lu Yu. Over the years, by chance, I have been running a Buddhist brand store called Jinyan Taibao in Thailand. With the popularity of Thai Buddhist plaques in China in recent years, many merchants selling Buddhist plaques on the market have been deceiving and cheating in order to seek profits, resulting in a proliferation of counterfeit goods. People who don't know why worship negative cards as legitimate ones, raise little ghosts, believe in xie cards, make mistakes, and cause great disasters everywhere. In order to prevent more people from being deceived, I have decided to write down all the things that have truly happened to me over the years related to Thai Buddhist plaques. Here, I advise everyone not to casually invite Buddha tiles or other items home. If you accidentally invite someone who shouldn't be invited, you may want to see them off. But it's not that easy. And all of this, from where to start, I have to mention my first girlfriend. Her name is Bai Xue. As her name suggests, she is very beautiful, with a tall and curvy figure, fair and delicate skin, and a small face the size of a palm. Her watery eyes resemble those of a female celebrity. She was the white moonlight in the hearts of many boys during our college years. Looking back, that was many years ago, and it was precisely because of her that our story began today. That was the summer of 2015, when I was still in my senior year and was about to graduate. I had been secretly in love with Bai Xue. Suddenly, one day she sent me a text message saying she would agree to my pursuit. I was extremely happy. I had always liked her during my college years, and I had confessed to her many times, although she prioritized learning and politely declined her many times. At that time, there were many boys pursuing her in school. At that time, my appearance was ordinary, and my family conditions were also average. Therefore, I think it was normal for her to refuse me. But I don't know why. I would love her so much, perhaps because her beauty and innocence deeply attracted me, or because after pursuing her for so many years, I couldn't bear to give up. I always felt that hard work would definitely pay off, so even though she refused me many times, I was still willing to be her protector for several years. She is almost always on call and persistent in her daily life. Chasing Snow White, I am very happy. I thought I would put a perfect end to my college life. But the story did not develop in the direction I had imagined. There is still more than a month before graduation, and Bai Xue, who promised to be with me, behaved very strangely. Although we had a good conversation in our daily lives, I basically sent her messages and she always replied. However, during this time, I had invited her many times, and she only went to the night market with me once. That night, we had something to eat at the snack stand. Afterwards, she returned to the dormitory early, citing the need to prepare defense materials. We didn't even have a chance to pull a hand. In the dormitory, several brothers also often care about the progress of my relationship with Bai Xue, often jokingly asking me where we have gone. During their college years, Shunner, who had some money at home, didn't even know how many girlfriends she had changed. He looks pretty big and even has several girlfriends at the same time. Among them, there is a brother named Lao Qin who has the best relationship with me. He married his high school girlfriend last year during the Chinese New Year. I, who have been a Chu for so many years, have often been ridiculed by them. At first, when they went to some XX places, bars, and KTV to hang out with girls, they would also ask me to go together, but after a few visits, I stopped going. Later on, they gradually stopped calling me along. Because I went out to play with them a few times before, and there were no girls talking to me, let alone playing, so I decided not to go at all. Actually, I have always wanted to have a first experience. After all, I am also a normal man. Faced with the concern of my good brothers, I am also very eager to have a deeper understanding of Bai Xue, but I have been struggling to have the opportunity. Finally, on this day, the opportunity has arrived. Bai Xue sent me a WeChat message, saying that she wants to take a graduation trip and asking if I would like to go with her. I am ecstatic when I see the information. Quickly replied to her that it was possible. Ask her where she wants to go. She said she has already visited many places in China during the winter and summer vacations of her college years. This time, she wants to go abroad. Can she ask me if it's okay? I asked her which country she wants to go to, and she said she wants to go to Thailand. At that time, traveling to Thailand was very popular, and I quickly agreed, saying that it was possible and I would accompany you. I couldn't contain the joy of being alone when I thought about traveling, so I quickly started raising funds. So I embarked on our trip to Thailand with Bai Shui, asking for what my family wanted and earning over 20,000 yuan from part-time internships during college. We have chosen to sign up for a travel group, which includes a 6-day itinerary, shuttle flights, hotel accommodations, and ticket and meal expenses. Because it is peak season, we also made a hasty order, with a price of over 4,000 yuan per person. Although it is not cheap, it is already within my affordability range and the best choice. Not long after getting on the plane, Bai Shui closed her eyes and rested. Although she wore exquisite makeup that day, the bruises under her eyes couldn't hide. It seemed like she hadn't rested well these days, which made me feel heartbroken. So I bravely reached out and leaned her head against my shoulder. She didn't refuse, and continued to sleep. The thought of sharing a room with her at night made me even more excited. Due to Snow White's outstanding appearance, the male passengers on the same plane kept casting their gaze towards us, which made me very enjoy it. Our first stop was Bangkok. After landing, we followed the arrangements of the tour group to complete a series of procedures, picked up our luggage, and then boarded the bus. As it was evening and there were no travel arrangements, the tour guide took us to the designated restaurant for a meal and then took us to the designated hotel. Take your luggage, get your room pass, and I'll take Bai Shui to the room. After arriving at the room and opening the door, I felt a ripple in my heart as I looked at the spacious and tidy bed. Looking back at Bai Shui's shy expression, I couldn't help feeling happy. Obviously, she also understood what we were going to face next. Put away our suitcases, and I said to Bai Shui, "It's still early. Do you want to go to the high-altitude glass swimming pool that the tour guide said? You can enjoy the night in Bangkok." She readily agreed, took out the pre-prepared swimsuit from the suitcase, and went to the restroom to change it. I lay on the big bed, casually switching the TV channel of a Thai hotel with a remote control. My heart had already flown to the bathroom, and I didn't know what surprise she would bring me. Not long after, Snow White walked out wrapped in a bathrobe. Her long hair, like a waterfall, had already been coiled up by her. She gave me a shy smile, and under the soft light, Snow White appeared even more charming and charming. She told me to quickly change and prepare to go out together. In response, I quickly went to look for swimming trunks, and as I passed by her, I couldn't help but pinch her slender waist. She made a coquettish sound, and I was very happy. After we went to the bathroom to change, we put on our room cards and closed the door. Arriving at the 27th floor of the hotel, what caught the eye was a quite large terraced swimming pool, with a beverage bar next to it. The waiters were busy mixing drinks, and by this time, many men and women had gathered, all wearing swimsuits, including Chinese and foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. With the cheerful bar music, Bai Shui and I quickly joined in. They both took off their bathrobes, and I was surprised to see Bai Shui wearing a white jumpsuit bikini inside. Her curvy figure, straight and slender thighs, and my blood vessels burst when I saw her. The moment she took off her bathrobe, it also attracted the attention of many people. Although I enjoy being envied by others for her beauty, I never want my girlfriend to be seen naked. I quickly approached her to declare my sovereignty and helped her walk down into the swimming pool. Bai Shui can't swim, although I can, I don't plan to teach her today. I thought to myself that she's dressed so beautifully, and I don't want her to attract too much attention from others. It would be better if I could go back early and appreciate it myself. Looking down at the night in Bangkok from the high-altitude swimming pool, it's really beautiful, with bright lights and bustling traffic. After playing for a while, I suggested going back. Don't let the wind catch a cold. Bai Shui is very obedient and agreed immediately. I helped her back to the shore, draped her in a bathrobe, and took her back to the room. After returning to the room, Bai Shui took the laundry to the restroom and locked the door. I asked her outside if she wanted to wash it together, but she panicked and said no. I am so beautiful in my heart that I am already looking forward to what will happen next. After Bai Shui finished taking a shower, I had already changed into a white camisole nightgown. Then, I took my laundry and went to the bathroom. I washed it very carefully, feeling happy and even couldn't help but hum a song. When I walked over, Bai Shui was already lying on the bed, covered in a blanket, and the empty space on the side of her body was obviously reserved for me. I wiped the water droplets on my head, and although I removed my makeup, Bai Shui was still so beautiful. She rubbed her eyes, and I asked her if she was tired. She answered me, The voice was as gentle as a kitten, teasing the strings of my heart. So I quickly wiped my hair 3 times, turned off the extra lights, only left a small night light by the bedside, and then went to lie down next to her. I am extremely nervous. It's the first time I've been lying in the same bed with a girl since I was so old. I feel so nervous in my heart. I took a few deep breaths, thinking about how to start with the first step. While I was thinking, Bai Shui took the initiative to reach out from under the covers and hold my hand. My body trembled, and then my brain went blank. She leaned over and buried her head in my arms. A unique fragrance of hers sucked into my nose, making my blood boil instantly. Under the light, it seemed to feel my nervousness, and she smiled gently at me. It melted my whole body. Her moment of innocence and beauty has deeply imprinted a mark on my heart, to the extent that it reminds me in the future that I couldn't bear to blame her for everything she had suffered. I couldn't help but give her a kiss on the forehead, and she shyly lowered her eyes. I was thrilled and thought to myself that today I will soon be no longer Chun. The other person is still my favorite Snow White, and thinking of it, I gave her a few hard kisses on the face. Just as I reached out to turn off the lights for the next step, Snow White panicked and stopped me, saying, "Don't turn off the lights." "Why?" I asked her. She whispered, "I haven't been able to sleep even when I turn off the lights lately, so don't turn them off." "Are you still afraid with me?" I responded arrogantly, turning off the bedside light with lightning speed before she could react. Suddenly turning off the light, Bai Shui was clearly a bit scared. With the intimate contact I had just had, I boldly hugged her and prepared to go through some ups and downs. Bai Shui started to feel a bit nervous, but with my movements, she didn't feel that nervous anymore. She cooperated with me naturally, even reaching out to help me when I couldn't undo the buttons on her underwear. But just as I was about to take off my pants and start the next step, an accident happened. Chapter 2. Accidents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. My position at this moment was kneeling on top of her, and I could clearly feel her legs stretching straight and making a painful sound. The sound was as if someone had suddenly strangled her neck and couldn't breathe. I couldn't lift my pants up or take them off, so I quickly turned on the light and saw her tightly gripping my neck with both hands, as if she was about to strangle me. I was so scared that I almost burst out with national treasures. Thinking to myself, what is this situation? Hurry up and break her hand. At this moment, her strength is very strong, which is not like her usually delicate. I almost exhausted all my strength before breaking open her hands. I panted and asked her what was wrong, but she seemed to be unable to hear me. At this moment, her face turned red and her face was almost ferocious. It was like being possessed by something, and the more I thought about it, the more scared I became. I quickly moved up and knelt on both of her arms with my legs, afraid that she would pinch my own neck again. Then he held onto her face and shouted at her loudly, as if she had lost consciousness and had no response. At this moment, she still had her eyes rolled up, her expression twisted and ferocious due to pain, and her mouth even made a sharp and piercing strange cry. I slapped her face hard, but it didn't make her wake up. I was afraid of something wrong, so I quickly thought of a way. When I saw her sleeping dress that had just been taken off next to her, I grabbed it and tied her hands. I got out of bed and went to flip through my clothes to find my phone. I wanted to contact the tour guide and take Bai Shui to the hospital. At this moment, my hands are trembling and I have never encountered such a thing before. Fortunately, I added a tour guide early in the morning. I quickly found her and told her about the situation. I quickly saw that she was typing, so I made a voice call and she answered. After telling her about the situation, she was also very scared. She said she will come over soon and take us to the hospital. After hanging up the phone, I got dressed separately for myself and Bai Shui. At this moment, I have no other thoughts and I don't want Bai Shui to have any problems. Soon, the tour guide arrived, accompanied by her husband. Her husband drove and helped us take Bai Shui to the hospital together. On the way, she asked me not to worry. I thanked her repeatedly, and she said it's okay to come and take care of us in the evening. As a tour guide, it's normal for tourists to seek medical help if they suddenly fall ill. This female tour guide is around 40 years old, and she arranged our itinerary in Bangkok. She has already introduced her on the bus, and her name is Zhang Qiqi. She is of mixed Chinese and Thai ancestry, with her father from Fujian and her mother from Thailand. She learned to travel while studying, and her Chinese is good. She has a good personality, and her husband is thin and tall, looking quite nice. Upon arriving at the hospital, Bai Shui's symptoms did not diminish and remained uncontrollable. Seeing that she could not cooperate with the examination, the doctor directly administered a sedative to her. Bai Shui, who had been sedated, quickly fell into a coma and remained motionless. After completing a series of examinations, the doctor said it was possible that she had been mentally stimulated, but did not notice any major problems. But this seems to make no sense. It doesn't look like Bai Shui is pretending at all, but it's not like what the doctor said. It's just a mental stimulation. Looking at Bai Shui sleeping in the hospital bed, I picked up my phone and saw that it was almost 12 o'clock. So I asked the tour guide and his wife to go back first, and I stayed here to accompany Bai Shui. The tour guide's sister agreed to contact me again tomorrow. After they left, I stayed at the hospital with Bai Shui. This was a type of ward in the lobby, with many beds, not single rooms. The scattered patient families on the beds had mostly rested, and the hallway lights were on. I found an empty bed not far from the Bai Shui bed to sit and rest. That night I didn't rest much, just staring at her, afraid that she would suddenly wake up, afraid that she would wake up and suddenly pinch myself, and when it was about to break, Bai Shui woke up. She seemed to remember what happened last night, trembling with fear. I walked over and hugged her, gently patting her back to soothe her. I said it was okay, it was okay. She cried and said she was so scared. She told me that she had been feeling like something was following her lately, and she didn't even dare to turn off the lights to sleep. But for some reason, yesterday that thing seemed to make her die, and she was even more afraid. I understand her meaning, but I have never believed in these strange and chaotic theories since I was young. So I comforted her and said, many things may be your own psychological suggestions, such as which horror movie or supernatural novel you have recently watched, and the clips or plot of it have only caused you psychological fear. Don't be afraid, with me, a passionate man, by your side, I will kill him no matter what he does, and call him good. Looking. She comforted for a while before feeling better, stopped crying, and said she was thirsty and wanted to drink water. I quickly said to go buy it. Just as I finished buying water and came back to give it to Bai Shui, the tour guide called me and asked me how I was doing. I said she woke up, her condition improved, and she recovered. She said she asked her husband to come and pick us up and take us back to the hotel, and I agreed. Hanging up the phone, Bai Shui drank some water and said she wanted to go to the restroom. I accompanied her and took her to the restroom. I was a bit worried and wanted to accompany her, but Bai Shui said there was no light. So I stood outside waiting for her, and shortly after she entered, suddenly I heard a bang. The bathroom suddenly turned black with a scream of white snow coming from inside. I anxiously called her name outside but received no response, so I hurriedly ran in. Following her voice, I found the compartment where she was located and kicked open the door. I saw Bai Shui squatting in the corner, pinching her neck, her face twisted and twisted, almost transforming into another person I didn't know. She let out a sharp voice that I almost couldn't recognize and said, "Death. Let's die together." I was so scared that I quickly broke her hands and struggled to get her out of the bathroom, calling out to the doctor. I don't understand Thai, and the doctors and nurses probably knew what was going on when they saw us like this. They all came to help when they heard the sound. Another dose of sedative. Soon, the tour guide's husband arrived. Seeing the situation with Snow White, it was obvious that he said we couldn't keep up with the group's itinerary and continue traveling today. I smiled bitterly and said, "It's okay. In the current situation of white snow, I have no other thoughts." While Snowy was dozing off, he started chatting with me. He was also fluent in Chinese and told me that his name sounded very similar to China's A Tao. "Please call him A Tao." I said he's older than me and can't just call him by name. "It's not good, just call him Tauga." He laughed happily when I called him brother. He told me that he is Thai and also knows Chinese. Like his wife, he is also a tour guide, but he has a car and often picks up private groups. I apologize for any inconvenience caused to him, but he said it's okay. He hasn't had a team recently and can accompany us. The hospital couldn't see anything about Bai Shui's condition, so in the afternoon we changed to another hospital. A normal Bai Shui couldn't detect anything, and when she was abnormal, the diagnosis was that she was mentally stimulated. A Taugu took us to several different hospitals within 2 days, but still couldn't see anything. But her illness is not only more severe than before, but also more frequent. It's time for me and a Tao, 2 adult men, to be able to control it. Sometimes she can call me by my name normally, and sometimes she suddenly giggles with a sinister smile. When she returns to the liquor store at night in good condition, she even takes the initiative to ask me to tie her up. Faced with her understanding, I feel heartbroken. For several days without rest, I couldn't even take a few bites of food, and my emotions were about to collapse to the extreme. Not only me, but also Brother Ateo was exhausted. During this period, several of my friends, including Lao Chin, De Zhuang, and Shun Air, also sent me messages and called me one after another, asking if I had a good time playing in Thailand, how I was doing with Bai Shui, and asking if my progress with Bai Shui was smooth or not. I smiled bitterly, but I didn't want to tell them the true situation of Snow White. I only told them that everything was fine. How could I still have the mood to think about anything else in Snow White's current situation? On the 4th day in Thailand, in the afternoon, I took Bai Shui, who had taken tranquilizer in a hospital, back to the hotel bed to rest. Soon, his wife knew that we were back to the hotel, and then came. She told me that the people in the group had flown to Chiang Mai from Pattaya. The guide there was accompanying us, saying that our tickets were also on the return trip to Chiang Mai. How did we plan? I looked at Bai Shui lying in bed and said to her, "In a few days, if Bai Shui's condition is still not good, we can only take her back to China for treatment." I thought to myself, now that Snow White has suddenly turned like this, although it is really unacceptable for a while, she is still my girlfriend, and I cannot ignore her. A Tao's wife gave her a vague glance and called me outside. She told me that she might have been entangled in something unclean. Ask me, do you want her to help me contact Master Azan in this area and show him Snow White? Although I feel heartbroken when I see the white snow like this now. But I have always been an atheist, seeming to see my concerns. A Tao's wife told me, "It's okay, you can go and see. If she doesn't have a Yin spirit master who doesn't charge, isn't it best if she hasn't been entangled in dirty things?" Upon hearing this, my heart was moved. These days, I have been running to various hospitals and have already spent a lot of money. I have to say that medical treatment here is really expensive. When I heard her say this, there is no need to spend money, and I think this proposal is good. At present, there seems to be no better way, so I can only die and become a live doctor. So in the afternoon, we drove with our guide and the drowsy Snow to Azan's house. I wasn't very familiar with Thailand at the time, so I only remembered driving a long distance and it was getting dark before we arrived. That is a remote village, and the car stopped by a house leaning against the mountain. On the way, Tao's wife told me that this Azan master's name is Azantuo, who is very famous in Thailand and is a white wizard. Many of the tourists she brought before came in admiration, including many celebrities and billionaires. I didn't pay any attention to these things before and didn't understand them. Just a doubt in my heart, is there such a God? When I entered the room, I found that there were still many people in the small room. There was a monk dressed in cross-legged clothes sitting in the center of the room, who was quite old and described as thin and haggard. His stubble had also turned a bit white. There were several people kneeling in front of him, male and female, with their hands clasped together. The old man in the middle, who looked like a monk, was reciting some scriptures and mantras, as if they were performing some ritual. Tao's wife told me that the one in the middle was Master Azantuo. I nodded and she went up to talk to a young man standing behind Master Azantuo. Then she turned to us and said, "Let's wait next to him. He's busy now." This is my first time encountering Master Azan from Thailand. Before that, I had hardly heard of this title, but I don't know what was going on. The master's chanting mantra echoed in the room, and my mind suddenly became prickly. Bai Shui was originally in a drowsy state, but she was held by us. Suddenly, she woke up, becoming even more crazy and restless, with immense power and energy. I and Tao finally managed to imprison her. Upon hearing this, Master Azan looked up and said a few words to the man and woman in front of him. The two of them nodded and left. After the two of them left, Azan looked in our direction and said a few words in Thai that I didn't understand to his disciple. The disciple immediately called Tao's wife over. After some conversation, Tao's wife told us that Master Azan sensed that Bai Shui's body had been invaded by several evil spirits and needed to expel the evil as soon as possible, otherwise there would be a risk of life. As we spoke, Master Azan had already walked up to us. He was not tall and reached out to cover Bai Shui's forehead, reciting some scripture curse that I didn't understand. However, this scripture curse was completely different from what he had recited with that man and woman before. I felt a severe headache in an instant, almost unable to help Bai Shui. At this moment, Bai Shui, who was struggling and restless, gradually calmed down and then fell asleep. Then Master Azan gestured for us to help her lie down on a nearby floor. He talked to Tao's wife for a few words, and Tao's wife asked me if I needed this master to help your girlfriend ward off evil spirits. I asked how much it was, and after asking the master, she told me that she needed 250,000 Thai baht. What? 250000 Thai baht. I almost exclaimed in surprise. About 50,000 renminbi. This was definitely a huge sum of money for me at that time. Do you need so much? I asked. Tao's wife told me, there is more than one evil spirit entangled in white snow, it is very complex, and it is not so easy to clean it up. I was shocked in my heart, how could it be? I, who never believed in these strange and chaotic words, had no doubts in my heart, but I looked down at the white snow lying there. Her face was pale as paper, and her eyes were almost sunken. In just a few days, she was haggard and much thinner. How could she have the same expression as before? Seeing this, my heart hurts again. But just now I saw that Master Azan seems to have some effect on the treatment of Snow White. For the sake of Snow White, I really want to give it a try, but I am just a poor student with no job or income. I have already spent almost all the money I have in hand in these few days. Where am I going to raise so much money in a moment? It seems that he noticed my embarrassment. A Tao suggested that we go back first. The suppression of Bai Shui cost 5,000 Thai baht. Returning to the car, I said to Tao and his wife, Brother Tao, Sister in law, 250,000 Thai baht is really too much. To be honest with you, I am still a student and haven't graduated yet. I can't even get that much money out of my hands for a while. Is there any other way, or is there another master who can be cheaper? A Tao looked at his wife, as if only she knew these people. After a moment of contemplation, a Tao's wife took out her phone, flipped through her contacts, and made a few phone calls in Thai. I couldn't understand Thai. After she finished calling, I asked her, Sister-in-law, how are you doing? Are there any results? A Tao's wife said to me, I asked a few friends and indeed found out that there is a master named Azan who has a low fee and high mana, but his reputation is not very good. Do you want to go? I thought to myself, whether his reputation is good or not doesn't matter. Can you have a good outlook on Bai Shui? Then he asked her, can he keep an eye on Snow White? Atao's wife hesitated for a moment, wanting to say something, but hesitated for a moment. After thinking for a moment, she said to me, you can go and take a look. I haven't had any experience with it, but I heard that the magic is very strong. I immediately decided to pass, and many years later, I still deeply regret the decision I made at that time. Why are you greedy for this advantage, to the extent that I am constantly entangled with this generation demon master, in our destiny? Chapter 3. Demon Master Azantuo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Demon Master Azantuo. Azan in Thailand means master or teacher. There is a distinction between white and black clothes, one is righteous and one is evil. White-clothed Azan mainly produces sacred objects such as Buddha plaques to help kind-hearted people achieve their wishes, reconcile and bow their heads. Black Azan is a Thai wizard and decapitator who can do anything for others to collect money. The person we are looking for is named Azantuo. At that time, he was a famous black-clothed Azantuo in Thailand. He wore a black robe all year round and was skilled in various Yin techniques and head-lowering techniques. Later on, I found out that his famous magic was due to his high and unpredictable cultivation of evil spells, so why did I jokingly call him a demon master later on? We arrived at his place around 9 p.m., which was very remote and sparsely populated. In a rudimentary two-story small bamboo building, I saw this Azantuo. He didn't look very old, about 35.6 years old. He wasn't tall, had a thin figure, and was dressed in a black robe. His thin face had bright and cunning eyes, and he looked very shrewd. At first glance, this person had a hint of an inexplicable smile on the corner of his mouth. You see that I'm a bit hairy all over. After listening to Ah Tao's wife explain his purpose, he turned around and called for a man who looked older than him, tall, and said he was his disciple. To my surprise, both of them knew a little Chinese. After seeing Bai Shui, he told us that he can help ward off evil spirits for a cost of 150,000 Thai baht. Although the price is slightly lower than that of Azantuo, it is still a huge sum of money for me, equivalent to 30,000 renminbi. Just when I was at a loss, Bai Shui suddenly woke up and went crazy, shouting, "Death, let's die together." Seeing Bai Shui like this, although I was worried about money, I gritted my teeth and stomped my feet, saying, "Let's do it." How long will it take? Azantuo said, her situation is quite complicated, with more than one ghost haunting her, and it will take about one night. Subsequently, Azantuo cast a spell to calm Bai Shui down, and then instructed his disciples to prepare for the exorcism ritual. As soon as the matter was settled, Tao and his wife said they had to go back first. There were still children at home, so they didn't trust that they were at home. I made an agreement with them to come and see us after the matter was over. I am very grateful to them. If it weren't for meeting them, I wouldn't know what to do if these things happened in a foreign land. I would have taken them back to the house in the car. At this moment, Azantuo and his team had already carried Snow White to the second floor, and they prepared many white cloth strips, red lines, and candles. I saw them wrapping Snow White in circles with white cloth strips, fixing her hands, feet, and whole body, only revealing a pair of eyes. I couldn't help but feel worried, thinking to myself, is this possible? Next, they arranged the white candles around the snow in a very regular shape and lit them up. Then, they wrapped a string around the middle of the candle to elongate a circle of regular and somewhat strange coils. I asked Azantuo if he needed any help, and he said he didn't. I looked around for a while and took a look at the second floor room. In the center of the room lay white snow wrapped in white cloth like a mummy, with various bottles and jars piled up under the surrounding walls. There were also some grim-looking bronze statues and bone-like objects, as well as several pots filled with black and red liquid like blood. It was here that I saw for the first time a large number of Buddha plaques made of various, strong ingredients. The room was filled with an indescribable odor, similar to the fragrance of spices covering the smell of decay. Azantuo introduced us to his various magical tools. Looking at the heads, skin, corpse oil, jars soaked in fragments of corpses, and fetuses covered in gold foil, I began to feel dizzy, as if something was covering my forehead. My head was groggy and uncomfortable, and I felt a bit nauseous. I endured the churning in my stomach and walked out of the house, wanting to call my family. I took out my phone and saw that it was already past 10 o'clock. I tried calling several times and found that I couldn't get through. However, upon closer inspection, there was no signal. Damn it! I couldn't help but curse, looking around and seeing scattered lights in distant places. What the hell is this TMD place? It's too biased. I have changed many places around the house, but there is still no signal and my phone's battery is running low. I have to leave in frustration and wait until tomorrow to find a solution. I sat in the seat downstairs, watching Azantuo's disciples occasionally transport things up and down the stairs. Before long, there were screams of agony from upstairs. I immediately wanted to go up and see what happened, but Azantuo's disciple stopped me at the staircase and said, "Master is doing things, don't disturb him. If he is affected, not only Master, but also your girlfriend will be threatened with her life." Upon hearing this, I had no choice but to give up. But seeing my concern, he told me, "It's okay, this is normal. The ghost doesn't want to leave the body, and the Master is casting a spell to expel the ghost." Azantuo's disciple saw that I no longer wanted to go up, so he asked me to go with him to the living room on the first floor, poured me a glass of water, and then started talking to me. Through chatting, I learned that his name is Kunpeng. He came here from Myanmar to study with Azantuo. Because his mother is from Yunnan, China, he can speak some Chinese. I told him that my name is Lu Yu and I am still a student. I came to Thailand with my girlfriend for tourism, and I didn't expect such a thing to happen. From upstairs, there were occasional screams of snow, and I kept looking in the direction of the sound. Kunpeng said, "You can go and see her when it's dawn, it's okay." When I asked him about the lack of signal here, Kunpeng gave me a smirk and said to me, "The signal here often goes on and off. Let's try again tomorrow during the day." Around dawn, Kunpeng asked me to go upstairs with him. Going upstairs, it was summer and there was no air conditioning on the second floor. It was supposed to be extremely hot, but at this moment, the stuffy room made me feel cold, with occasional chilly winds passing through me. Snow was still the same as what I had seen before, bound by a white cloth strip. Her eyes were tightly closed, and Azantuo was sitting next to her reciting a spell. My brain was hurting, and Kunpeng held a tray with 4 Buddha cards placed in front of Azantuo. Azantuo picked up the Buddha cards one by one and cursed them. Before long, he stopped reciting the spell and said to Kunpeng, "It was okay." Immediately, Kunpeng walked up to the front end with the 4 Buddha cards. It's a strange feeling. I seem to feel that the temperature in the room is not as cold as before. Azantuo said to me, I have driven out the ghost in her body and injected it into the Buddha card. She's fine for now. As soon as I heard this, I became anxious and said, are you saying temporarily? Is there any danger for her afterwards? Azantuo glanced at me with a tired expression and said to me, yes, the Yin spirit is only temporarily placed in the Buddha card, and I need to continue to bless it in the future. It will be completely okay in about 7,749 days. I thought to myself, it's not easy to earn this money, after all, with so many days of work here. The white snow is now. You can untie the cloth strip on her body and let her rest well. In a few days, she will return to normal, he said as he turned around and went downstairs. I went to Bai Shue's side to help her untie the cloth strip, and soon Kunpeng also came to help. We helped Bai Shue downstairs, and Kunpeng asked me how to pay. There's no signal on the phone. Can you take me to find out where the signal is? I'll call home and then transfer it to you, okay? I said. Kunpeng nodded. Quickly, Bai Shue woke up and I told her about the exorcism. It was okay now. She smiled at me weakly and apologetically, saying, Ayu, I'm sorry for making you suffer with me. What are you saying? You are my girlfriend, taking care of you is my duty. Isn't it a lot of money? She asked anxiously. Don't worry about money, there's nothing more important than you. She weakly shook my hand, and I asked her to sit and rest for a while before following Kunpeng out of the room. Kunpeng took me to a place closer to the village and looked around to see if the signal had finally recovered. He called my parents first, but in fact, my family is not wealthy. My father works in a factory, and my mother is not in good health. She usually works odd jobs to subsidize my family. It's really not easy for me to pay for it. In recent years, I haven't asked my family what money they need. Apart from tuition and living expenses, I only have enough to eat every day. Computers and mobile phones are all second-hand necessities that I bought. The phone rang a few times and answered, and my father's concerned voice came from the phone. Diwu, what's wrong? Did the interview go smoothly lately? When do I have time to go home? Words reveal deep concern. I opened my mouth and wanted to ask them for some money, but after a few words, I still gave up because I didn't have enough money before coming to Thailand. I had already made an excuse to ask them for it. The reason was that I was about to graduate and needed money to find a job and rent a house. I couldn't find any reason, and I couldn't bear to find any more. After briefly caring about them, I hung up the phone with guilt and haste. Afterwards, I called a few friends again and didn't tell them what was going on with Bai Shue. I only said that I had a small accident and needed 30,000 yuan urgently. But after all, it's not a small amount, and even after making a few phone calls, I didn't get much. Although Shunner is a wealthy second-generation, he doesn't have much pocket money every month, but he still gave me 5,000 yuan. Dazhuang's family has average conditions and doesn't have much money, but he also gave me 3,000 yuan. Since Lao Qin got married, there are many places to use money, and he barely gave me 1,500 yuan. The total amount of money I have in my hands is less than 10,000 yuan. It doesn't look much worse than 30,000 yuan, but it's actually quite a lot. I asked Kunpeng, I don't have enough money. Can I return to my home country and pay you back? I can't be the master either, why don't you ask Master Azan? Kunpeng said. So, I followed him back to the bamboo tower. Bai Shue saw that my face was not looking good and asked me if something had happened. I said it was okay and asked her not to worry. Then follow Kunpeng to Azantuo's resting room. At this moment, Azantuo was closing his eyes and meditating in the room to rest. When he saw us enter and opened his eyes, his expression was quite tired. Kunpeng told him about the situation and he said angrily, we had already agreed on the price before. Since you don't have the money now, what legal action should you take? I knew I was wrong, so I lowered my head and asked him, can I go back and give it to you? I can write a note and give you my identity information. Azantuo's face sank and he said, I haven't encountered such a thing before. What if I don't fulfill my promise after returning to China? Do we still have to go to China to ask you for this money? His tone was not heavy, with a lukewarm anger, but obviously he didn't agree with my words. I said, this is indeed my fault, but when I looked at Snow White like that at the time, I couldn't care about anything else. Can you give me some time and I'll think of a way? After a moment of silence, he said to me, then you stay here and work for me to repay the money. What? I exclaimed in surprise. I suddenly became panicked and alert, thinking to myself, I don't know how to ward off evil or do things. What did he leave me here to help him with? Besides, what kind of work can be worth over 20,000? What job? What job do you have here that I can do? I told him that I came with a tour group and I have to go back tomorrow. He told me that Bai Shui can go back first, and he asked someone to help me change my visa so that I can stay here for a longer time. As for what kind of work to do to repay the money, he only said he would help him run errands, deliver goods, sell Buddha plaques, and take on business. This matter was originally my fault, it was just a difference of over 20,000 yuan. I thought to myself, it's not much money. As long as I work hard, I can pay it back soon, and once I pay it back, I can go back. So, I agreed to let Bai Shui go back as we agreed, while I stayed here. Chapter 4. Leave Debt Repayment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I didn't tell Bai Shui it was because of money, I just said there was something that wasn't resolved yet and asked her to leave first. I will go back to find her soon. She was very reluctant until the tour guide and his wife came to pick me up, but seeing my tough attitude, she had to agree to follow them first. Returning to the bamboo tower, I began to discuss with Azantuo and Kunpeng how to repay the money I owed. Azantuo said, Kunpeng will arrange for you, I need to rest for a while. After that, he left Kunpeng and me, while he went back to his bedroom. Kunpeng said, let me go with him to deliver goods to some Buddha brand stores and customers first, in order to offset the debt owed. He said that every time we go out to deliver goods with him, they give me 500 Thai baht. Is there a lot of delivery work, every day? I asked. It depends on the situation. Sometimes we have to deliver 5 or 6 times a week, and sometimes we only get one order every 2 weeks, Kunpeng replied. I thought to myself, 500 Thai baht at a time is too little, equivalent to only 100 renminbi, and it's not like I do this kind of work every day. When will I be able to go back? So, I said directly to Kunpeng, Brother Kunpeng, you can only give me 500 Thai baht for one delivery, which is really too little. It's not stable yet. When will I be able to pay back the money? Upon hearing this, Kunpeng glared at me and said angrily, I used to be the only one who delivered the goods. Can't I give you 500 baht now? Please write down the contact information and addresses of these people. In the future, if you deliver separately, I can give you 800 baht. I heard his dissatisfaction in his words and said to Kunpeng, Brother Kunpeng, I have no intention of competing with you for work. It's just that I'm about to graduate and my girlfriend is still waiting for me to go back. I'm a bit anxious. Kunpeng remained silent for a while, then looked at me up and down with an ambiguous gaze and asked me in a voice, Are you brave? What's scary about me being able to make money and pay off debts as soon as possible? I said seriously, as long as a man doesn't kill or set fire, as long as he can make money. What's so scary? Upon hearing what I said, Kunpeng smiled and said, All right then. I'll call you if there's a big order. I said, okay. So, before I knew it, I had been staying with Azantuo for over a week. During this time, Azantuo had hardly left the bamboo tower. He would recite mantras and offer blessings to various Buddha signs and artifacts on the second floor every morning and at night. Occasionally, some people would come to find Azantuo to use assassination talismans and do things. And I followed Kunpeng several times to deliver goods to the outside world. The so-called goods were some Buddha plaques, some small bottles, and some clay dolls, all of which were said to have been blessed by Azantuo. I'm not very familiar with these things, to be honest. I'm not very interested either. I just want to finish my work quickly and go back to reunite with Bai Shui as soon as possible. Bai Shui has already returned to China, and after spending some time with her, I clearly feel that our relationship has become much closer than before. We have had more conversations, and she doesn't hide her dependence and longing for me in her words. She has been hoping for me to go back soon, and I actually enjoy this feeling. The feeling of being cared for by her is even more like her than before. When I can't sleep at night, I also lie on the bamboo bed and flip through her photos. Watching Kunpeng's big order in his heart, he looked forward to it even more. What surprised me was that sometimes when I was not busy, Azantuo would explain some knowledge in this area to me, and sometimes even let me read some of his precious scripture books. I was not interested in these things at all and pretended that I couldn't understand them, but he even said that he would write a note in Chinese translation for me next time. This makes me very confused. This bamboo tower is not big. There are only 2 bedrooms and 1 living room downstairs. There are 2 bedrooms facing each other from the living room, one for Azantuo and one for Kunpeng. As there were no other rooms left, Kunpeng and I naturally stayed together. During this time, the tour guide Adoj brought me my luggage, and he learned about my situation. He didn't say much, only asked me to come to him for help, and didn't stay much. I am very grateful to him. He is a good big brother. When I couldn't sleep at night, I asked Kunpeng why Azantuo would talk to me about that knowledge. Upon hearing my inquiry, Kunpeng smiled inexplicably and said, "Maybe he thinks you have the potential in this area and wants to take you as an apprentice." I was shocked and couldn't believe it. "Brother Kunpeng, are you joking? I'm not interested in these things at all. I just want to go back quickly and reunite with my girlfriend." I thought he was just joking and didn't take it seriously. Although I didn't believe in ghosts and gods before, I have gained some reverence for such things that happened through the incident in White Snow. During this period of time, my relationship with Kunpeng has also become good. I also know that Kunpeng has been with Azantuo since a very early age. They came from northern Thailand together from Myanmar, and Azantuo is dedicated to practicing Buddhism. He doesn't care much about money, but he also needs money to maintain his life and practice. Therefore, Kunpeng manages his accounts, and Azantuo never asks about it. They trust each other and won't have conflicts because of money. I asked Kunpeng, he should have married and had children long ago, right? But on this issue, Kunpeng, who was talking eloquently, suddenly changed his face and angrily said, "This matter is not to be asked again in the future." I am also interested, but I didn't mention it again afterwards. I also understand that many people actually have secrets in their hearts, and some secrets are undisclosed. A few more days later, I didn't receive the big order I had hoped for, and Azantuo spent his leisure time teaching me more attentively. In the face of my perfunctory behavior, he didn't get angry again, just gave me sincere advice. "Say, this will be useful for you in the future." That morning, a beautiful Thai woman in her 20s and 60s arrived at the bamboo house. She was dressed fashionably and had a slightly frivolous demeanor. When she arrived, Azantuo was meditating and practicing upstairs. She greeted Kunpeng with her hands clasped together, as if she often came here. She smiled and chatted with Kunpeng before heading straight up to the second floor. When she passed by me, her beautiful eyes even cast a seductive glance at me. I rarely see such a beautiful female customer here, so I asked Kunpeng, "Kunpeng, do you know this girl?" Kunpeng gave me a glare and I immediately fell silent. Not long after, as Azantuo and the beautiful woman's joyful voice came from the second floor, I became more and more curious about this beautiful woman, but she didn't stay long either. When I passed by Kunpeng and I went downstairs, she said a few more words to Kunpeng, seeming very happy. Before leaving, she also touched Kunpeng's chest, and Kunpeng's expression was very helpless. Originally, she was a woman from the red light district of Bangkok, named Alien. She had previously hired a brand from Azantuo, which had a great effect. This time, she came to thank Azantuo and also told him that she had recently met a very wealthy customer and wanted to lock him up. However, the man had a family, so it would be best if he could divorce her and marry her. So she asked Azantuo if there was any way. Azantuo said that he could lower the price for that man, but he needed his hair, photo name, and a fee of 50,000 Thai baht. Alien said there is no problem, but due to the distance, she hopes that Azantuo will send someone to collect these things when providing them. I asked Kunpeng, "Can you take me with you then?" Kunpeng clearly understood what I meant, and he snorted softly, "You kid, don't I know what you're up to yet? Although it's not a big deal, it's still quite profitable." So the next day, Kunpeng and I went to pick up things as agreed. That is in a very famous red light area in Papang Lane, Thailand. According to the address, Kunpeng and I walked through a long street. During the day, the street here was unusually quiet, and there were hardly any people on the road. However, from the various shaped billboards on both sides of the road and the many garbage on the road that couldn't be cleaned up in time, it seems that the night may be even busier. Quickly, we met Alien in a dilapidated building. She was not as exquisite as we had seen before, and without makeup, she added a touch of innocence and sweetness. It seemed like she had just woken up, with messy hair and a white thin suspender on her chest. Her chubby figure was about to emerge, and her shorts were unusually short, making my heart skip a beat and I was drooling. She blocked the door with her body and had no intention of letting us in, as if there was someone inside. She was very happy to see us and quickly went inside to bring out something wrapped in a black bag for Kunpeng. Kunpeng took me out of this building after taking things. On the way back, Kunpeng invited me to have a delicious meal, seafood noodles. During my time in Thailand, I hardly ate well and lost a lot of weight. Previously, it was because of the snow, but later on, when I was with Azantuo, he and Kunpeng both practiced and ate light and without any meat. I couldn't get used to it and naturally ate less. This bowl of noodles almost made me cry. I even finished drinking soup, and Kunpeng naturally didn't eat anything. Seeing how delicious I ate, he asked me if I wanted another bowl. I waved my hand and said no more. I asked him, "Brother Kunpeng, there are so many delicious things in the world. Why don't you enjoy them? I see that your cultivation is really too hard. Give me something I can't bear." "You don't understand," Kunpeng said. When I asked him this question, his face turned pale, so I didn't ask further. After finishing our meal, we returned and began preparing to flirt with Alien's man. Azantuo said that this love affair can bring couples and couples back together, make lovers wholeheartedly, and restart broken relationships. I thought to myself, is it so magical? If it were really so magical, if I had known I had this kind of thing, would I give it to Bai Shui to use? Did I already? He. Just as I was thinking this, Azantuo seemed to see through me and poured cold water on me, saying, "But this is not permanent, it can only be guaranteed for a period of time. After a few years, it may gradually lose its effect. No one knows what will happen after losing its effect." Despite what he said, I still became curious about this situation. It's been good for a few years, but if I learn this, will there still be girls I can't find in the future? So I also worked hard to learn, studying almost every step carefully. Seeing my transformation, Azantuo seemed very happy. He patiently explained to me what the prepared things were, what the ingredients were, and what their effects were. I really wanted to vomit during the ingredient process. Various Yin ingredients were added with mantras, crushed and mixed, and I almost cried uncontrollably. But fortunately, I also remembered the process. 2 days later, it was time to cast a spell on the man Alien. This situation requires the other party to eat our prepared food into their mouth, and then use the mantra to achieve the goal. So for the convenience of landing, we arrived at a good restaurant that we had discussed in advance. We sat in the corner of the restaurant, with Azantuo facing us with his back to the lobby, and we leaned against the wall to see the environment of the restaurant clearly. From time to time, Yen and the man would come in. The man was around 40 years old, fat and of medium height, looking greasy, but his clothing couldn't conceal his wealth. At this moment, a scene of him rolling with Yen flashed in my mind, and my stomach couldn't help but churn. I thought to myself, this is really the charm of money. Alien intimately hugged him and sat down in our seat at a distance, starting to order food. Azantuo and Kunpeng asked me what I wanted to eat, but they didn't need anything. I was naturally rude when I heard this, and invited the waiter. If I didn't know Thai, I took the picture on the menu and pointed to crabs, prawns, and fried rice. The dishes on both sides came up one by one. I noticed that when Alien was feeding the chubby man, she accidentally spilled food on him. Then the man left his seat and went to the bathroom. Alien took advantage of this gap and came to our seat. Kunpeng took out a small bottle from her pocket and handed it to her. She quickly returned to her seat and sprinkled the powder inside into the man's food. Not long after, the man returned, and as he watched him start eating the food in front of him, Kunpeng told Azantuo that it was okay. At this moment, Azantuo took out an irregular bowl-like container from his arms, bit through his middle finger, dripped a drop of blood into it, and then began to recite the mantra continuously. I don't know what's going on. Every time I hear the mantra, my brain hurts a lot. No matter which one it is, I feel very uncomfortable. The seafood in my mouth also makes me feel like I can't even chew wax. I had to cover my ears, hoping it would end soon. The man seemed to feel a headache in an instant, stopped eating, and had to use both hands to forcefully support his head. As Azantuo recited his mantra faster and faster, the man couldn't hold on and slid down from his seat to the ground. Seeing this, Alien and the restaurant staff quickly went to help. At that moment, Azantuo stopped reciting the mantra. He nodded to Kunpeng and said that the situation had settled. The voice was very soft, and when Kunpeng heard it, he also nodded at Alien, who was panicked and anxious across from her. Alien immediately understood. Not long after, the man's headache slowly eased and he stood up with the help of everyone. This happened, and the man shouted loudly. As someone who didn't understand Thai, I knew he was cursing the restaurant. At this moment, many customers came over and, in order to calm things down, the restaurant's people had to avoid paying bills. Alien quickly helped the fat man out of the restaurant. After this matter was over, Kunpeng gave me 10,000 Thai baht, which brought me one step closer to paying off my debt. This made me very happy. At the same time, after learning about emotional decline, I also began to develop an interest in these things. I was particularly curious about what Azantuo always made into that vessel. So at night, when I was in the same room as Kunpeng, I asked him, and he told me that everyone who practices black magic needs a magical tool, and Azantuo's magical tool is actually a skull called a Gabala bowl, but not everyone's skull can be made into a magical tool. Only the skull of a highly cultivated mage can become a magical tool, and Azantuo's skull is his master's. I realized that this tool seemed important to Azantuo, so I asked, without that skull, wouldn't Azantuo be unable to complete the ritual? Kunpeng replied, yes. I understood in my heart and then asked him, what if this thing is lost? If someone else takes it, does that mean they become a mage as powerful as him? Generally, black mages attach great importance to their magical tools, and over time, they will have a connection with their owner's intentions. However, if they want to inherit this magical tool, they must obtain the owner's consent, otherwise it will become the skull. Upon hearing Kunpeng's answer, I couldn't believe it and thought to myself, does this thing still have its owner? Chapter 5. Yin Ling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I thought to myself, then I don't have a magic tool. Is learning this thing still useful? So he asked Kunpeng, if there were no magic tools, would casting spells still be useful? Kunpeng pondered for a moment and replied, "It's also a bit effective, but the sustained effect won't be too long." Upon hearing this, I was overjoyed and thought to myself, this is not bad either. I have learned how to lower my emotions. Next time, if I give Bai Shui a try, can I ask her to do whatever she wants? Thinking of Bai Shui, I realized that I had been staying with Azantuo for more than 10 days without realizing it. Initially, I would call Bai Shui every day. That was supposed to be my happiest time, but she always forced me to ask what was wrong with not going back. I didn't want to show my fear in front of her and started to be afraid of talking to her. The messages I sent also suggested that the signal was not good, so I chose to answer some questions. I am afraid that over time, my relationship with Bai Shui will change, and I am eager to earn enough money to go back home as soon as possible. I am calculating in my heart that now, with the money I borrowed and the money I have spent working these days, I still owe him over 10,000 yuan. So, I am looking forward to having a big order someday. The next day, when Kunpeng and I were going to deliver the goods, we encountered something. At a hotel in Bangkok, we met this customer and heard from Kunpeng that they have known each other for a long time and often cooperate. He is from Guangzhou, surnamed Wang, and his name is Fang. He has a well-proportioned appearance and a tall figure. In his 40s, he runs several Buddhist brand stores in Guangzhou. Judging from his attire, his clothes are all of high brand, and he wears a thick gold necklace around his neck. He must have done a good job in business. He asked Kunpeng to send him a few Yin cards that he had previously asked them to make. I didn't know much about these things before, but after being with Azantuo and his team for a while, I finally gained some understanding of these things. Most of the authentic materials are plants, temple soil, and metal, which are then blessed by the high monks of large temples with their years of cultivation. They are called authentic, while the black-clad Buddha plaques bestowed by Azantuo and others contain materials such as ashes and corpse oil. Some are also poured into the souls of deceased people. It is said that by offering and reciting mantras in a certain way, the ghosts can reach a spiritual connection with their masters, thereby driving the spirits to do things for themselves. I don't know if it's really that magical, but almost all the people who come to Azantuo to get cards are negative cards. And these two types of Buddha cards, as long as they are real, will have an effect, but the effect of the main card is slower, while the effect of the negative card is more suitable for those who are eager to achieve success, and the effect is naturally stronger. After some pleasantries, he asked us to sit down, poured us water, and then asked Kunpeng to show him the goods. Kunpeng took out 4 Buddha cards from his arms and introduced them to him one by one. The first one was a card wrapped in a round transparent shell of water droplets, containing a photo of a woman soaked in an unknown yellowing liquid. The woman looked very beautiful and young upon closer inspection. Kunming explained, "Here is a female spirit who was forcibly jumped off a building and committed suicide. She has a strong resentment, but the effect is overwhelming. Take a look." Fang took it over and carefully examined it, then nodded in satisfaction. The second one is an oval-shaped transparent shell, with a doll-like shape inside. Its 2 eyes are crimson and seem to emit light, making people shudder at a glance. Kunpeng said, "This is a ghost who died almost full term due to his mother's difficult childbirth, with great resentment and a domineering effect, but it needs to be carefully enshrined." The third and fourth are both rectangular transparent shells, each containing bone fragments resembling a skull. These are the skulls of 2 murderers, injected with their pre-death grievances. They are extremely rare, and the way they are worshipped is extremely cursed. I will send them to you one after another. Fang was very satisfied. After checking everything, he took out a thick stack of money from his leather bag and handed it to Kunpeng. He said, "This is the 100,000 Thai baht we agreed on before. Please click on it." After Kunpeng took it, he confirmed the quantity and installed it. "Kunpeng, next time you have such good goods, you must tell me," Fang said with a smile. "Sure. By the way, does Azantuo have anything good in his hand in the end?" Is the effect domineering? Fang asked again. I have recently recaptured several Yin spirits, which are infant spirits that were just developed and fell off. They have a strong resentment, but they have not been fully tamed by their master yet. It will take some time for their master to bless them, and I will let you know, Kunpeng replied. Fang was very happy and instructed Kunpeng, brother, good goods must think of me. On the way back, I kept thinking about what Kunpeng said, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt something was wrong. How many ghosts have I recently subdued? The soul of a baby. With this in mind, I directly asked Kunpeng brother, dare I ask you what you mean by the few Yin spirits you just said to Fang, and when did you collect them? It's the ones who are clinging to your girlfriend, Kunpeng replied decisively. I was shocked in my heart. Quickly asked, why are the Yin spirits entwined with white snow? According to reason, they should be entwined with their mother. Also, how can you conclude that they are infant spirits? Even though I feel amazed by their strength, can a child's soul have such great strength? Because she is the mother of those dead children, Kunpeng answered straightforwardly. What? Hearing what he said, I was so angry that I exploded. I grabbed his collar and shouted, what are you talking about? How could Snow White do such a thing? You his mother act like a ghost. I swung my fist and was about to hit him. Kunpeng didn't hesitate to see me trying to hit him, so he immediately got into a fight with me. Kunpeng only fired an electric cannon at my face, and my mind was buzzing. I didn't let go of the hand that was holding onto his clothes, and I used a painful move to kick Kunpeng's foot. He didn't expect me to take this move and immediately fell to the ground, spilling the money I had just received from my pocket. I was furious and didn't intend to let go of him. I was about to go up and continue hitting him with my fist, but I didn't expect his newly swung fist to be firmly grasped by him. He took the opportunity to stand up and gave me a heavy over-shoulder throw, followed by a big foot kicking me in the chest. I didn't recover in a breath and lay on the ground, unable to move when he hit me. Kunpeng snorted coldly, have you taken it? I gritted my teeth and tried hard to stand up, but in vain. This is a bustling street, with many passers-by gathered to watch. Seeing me lying motionless on the ground, he released his foot that was pressing on me, went to pick up the scattered money and pack it up, then sat next to me. After a moment of silence, he said to me, if you don't believe what I'm saying, you can ask that girl, but I don't know if she will tell you the truth. There's one more thing, do you know? What's up? I squeezed a few words out of my teeth in pain and difficulty. Kunpeng pondered for a moment and whispered to me, actually, when you brought her here, we saw that she was pregnant for about a month. But as practitioners, we can also see that your yang energy has not been released, so you should still be a true man, right? I was like a bolt from the clear sky, my mind was blank. I can't believe it. How could a woman like Bai Shui do these things? No, it won't be true. You must be lying to me. I fainted due to being severely injured both physically and mentally, and by the time I woke up, I had already returned to Azantuo's home. After returning to his residence, Azantuo learned about my fight with Kunpeng and didn't scold me. He just said to me, I have a mantra that can make people speak the truth. Do you want to give it a try? Chapter 6. Knowing the Truth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although I can't believe these things are true, I also feel that Azantuo and Kunpeng have no reason to deceive me. So, after all, I still wanted this mantra. I had a plan in my mind to find someone to try after memorizing it, but I didn't want to try it on Bai Shui. I was afraid that if she really did what Kunpeng said, how would I face her? I think of someone, Bai Shui's best friend, Ping. They are usually inseparable, so she must know a lot about Snow White. The next day, while Kunpeng and I were out on business, I sent a message to Ping, thanking her for taking care of Bai Shui during my absence. I said I wanted to give her a gift and needed her to make a video selection for me later. However, I hoped she would keep Bai Shui confidential. I said I was afraid Bai Shui would become jealous if she found out. Zhong Ping readily agreed, and after a while, she called me a WeChat video. At the end of the video, Zhong Ping seemed to be in the restroom. She was happy to greet me and told me that she was shopping with Bai Shui in the mall just now. When she saw my message, she immediately found a restroom to play video with me. After a brief conversation, she asked me why I am still in Thailand. When are you planning to come back? I turned the camera to show her the environment around me. At this moment, I was in a corner of a restaurant. I had just finished delivering goods to a Buddha brand store and was preparing to eat something to go back. It was already afternoon, and after dinner, there weren't many people in the restaurant. Kunpeng went to the restroom, which was a good time for me to implement the plan. I showed her the scenery outside the glass window and turned the camera to face Zhong Ping. Zhong Ping didn't notice my thoughts and spoke on her own, while I didn't respond. Instead, I quickly recited the mantra I had already memorized to her. The mantra of the mantra, as long as you constantly recite it, will cause people to lose self-awareness in a short period of time, and thus obey the words of the cursor. As I quickly recited the mantra, Zhong Ping, who had just been full of energy, gradually became empty in her eyes and dull in her expression. Therefore, I stopped reciting the mantra and began to ask. I learned from Zhong Ping that Bai Shui was not the pure girl I had imagined. The usual aloofness and reserve are only displayed to us pursuers. During her college years, she secretly spent several years with a big boss outside of school, but that big boss was wealthy and her to be the CEO of a listed company. But this man already has a family, and his wife has good family conditions. His company can't do so well without the help of his wife's family, so he wouldn't divorce for the sake of Snow White. And Bai Shui has already had 4 pregnancies for that man, and recently became pregnant again. The man forced her to have them terminated, but Bai Shui disagreed because the doctor said that if she had them terminated, she might never be able to be a mother again. However, the man let go of his harsh words and either terminated the pregnancy or cut it off completely. I also know, it turns out that Bai Shui suddenly showed affection and wanted to date me, just to make me the scapegoat. The more I listened, the more angry I became. I didn't expect that the white moonlight, which I had liked for so many years, would look like this behind my back. I've been burdened with a lot of debt for her. I am still working in a foreign land to pay off debts. Thinking of this, I unconsciously clenched my fists and shed tears from the corners of my eyes. Just then, the voice of Bai Shui came from the other end of the video. Wang Ping, are you okay? Why have you been using the restroom for so long? I heard this and didn't ask any further. I have already obtained the answer. Hanging up the phone, even though it was a hot summer, I felt like falling into an ice cellar. Something that opens one's eyes to money. I curse in my heart. Is money really that good in this world? Is there no more pure woman? Can some women do all kinds of things without limits for money? I am indignant and indignant. The incident with Bai Shui has really made me negative for a while and also made me no longer believe in beautiful women for a long time, because the more beautiful women are, the more deceitful they are. At the same time, secretly make up your mind. I will make a lot of money in the future. A few days later, a big deal came to us. He was a wealthy Taiwanese businessman in his 40s who worked in the food industry in Thailand. He wanted to retaliate against an enemy who claimed to have taken away a lot of his business. He was very angry and wanted Azantuo to use Yin magic to get rid of him. This enemy used to be from Taiwan, but now he is also a wealthy figure in Thailand. He has many bodyguards at home, and he is deep and simple, making it difficult to get close to him. Therefore, ordinary black magic is not feasible. Ask Azantuo if he has any more powerful spells. Azantuo said, there is a top-notch technique of lowering the head and devouring souls. You only need to provide photos, hair, or personal clothing to him. However, although this spell works quickly and can kill in one hit, it greatly damages the caster's cultivation. It is recommended to lower the head to a regular one. But this Taiwanese customer thought this top-notch head-lowering spell was good upon hearing it, and immediately decided to use it. This kind of urgent legal action is extremely dangerous, with extremely high risks, and there may be a risk of death at any time. At first, Azantuo did not want to take it, but unfortunately, the other party gave too much and directly quoted 1.5 million Thai baht, equivalent to 300,000 renminbi. And I paid a deposit of 500,000 Thai baht first. It was precisely this incident that made me truly realize the power of the black law. I also witnessed how ruthless the black law is. For the sake of money, one can harm people's lives without any bottom line. I didn't want to collude with others and involve these life-threatening things, but I still owe them money and can't escape for a while. I just want to leave Thailand as soon as possible. Quickly, the wealthy Taiwanese businessmen brought what Azantuo needed, and they quickly finalized the time for casting the spell, which was set in a week. During the preparation of the ritual, Azantuo actually said he wanted to take me as his disciple. I am well aware that being a black-robed mage is not a good thing, and I despise this profession. I should have refused, but perhaps this ritual is really dangerous, and he will lose his life as a result. In his eyes, I can see sincerity and an imperceptible desolation. I also think of his kind and caring attitude towards me during this period, and he unexpectedly agreed to it by a mysterious means. He told me that because my yang energy is not fully released, it is particularly suitable for cultivation. According to his instructions, I gave him a teacher worship ceremony. Formally became his disciple. Not long after the apprenticeship ceremony, he told me that because I had direct contact with Bai Shui, my body was contaminated with Yin Qi, so every time I heard the mantra, I would have a headache. He said he wants to give me a talisman, so that I won't be afraid of any Yin energy in the future and can also protect my safety, which will be of great help to my cultivation. I am very tempted and think it's pretty good. But with the lesson of Bai Shui, I was afraid that the fees would be very high, so I had to continue paying off the debt myself. So I asked him, how much is it? He smiled and said, the gift my master gave you is free. After many years, I thought of this scene and wished I could slap myself a few times. I deeply regret why I was greedy for this small advantage at that time. The talisman he pricked for me is very ancient. I remember when he pricked the talisman for me, he also recited many sutras. After pricking, I did feel very different. In the days that followed, no matter what kind of mantra sound I heard, I would not feel a headache anymore, and my perception of these Yin things was very obvious. But the cost is really too high, because shortly after I finished piercing the talisman, I realized that I couldn't unleash my male prowess. However, this is a later part. Soon, the ritual prepared for the wealthy Taiwanese businessman arrived as scheduled. At around 10 p.m. that evening, we followed the wealthy Taiwanese businessman in a car to a very remote and abandoned factory. Our group got off the car, and then Azantuo quickly chose a very spacious venue. I helped Kunpeng set up the formation, and as we lit the candles one by one, Azantuo sat inside the formation and took out his magical tool, Gabala, from his arms. Chapter 7. Soul Devouring Technique. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Before this, I learned from Kunpeng that this soul-devouring spell is one of the top-level and most dangerous spells in the current black magic. It not only requires the caster to have extremely high cultivation, but also cannot be affected by any external interference during casting. When casting, the mage's soul will transform into a weapon to attack the target and cause it to die, because the mage's soul will temporarily leave the body during casting. Therefore, in addition to protecting it from external interference, it is also necessary to ensure that its body is not plundered by the wandering ghosts around, otherwise the consequences will be unimaginable. Kunpeng once told me that looking at the whole of Thailand, and even Southeast Asia, there are not many black-clad Azans who have the cultivation of Azantuo, and there are even fewer people who can use such spells, because many black-clad Azans may have died during the practice process before they can truly implement this spell successfully. Although Kunpeng was full of confidence in Azantuo, I couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy about him in my heart. The wealthy Taiwanese businessman made a phone call and soon lowered his head to Tuobazan, who was already sitting in the formation, and said, "My person is monitoring the building opposite him. He is currently sleeping alone in the room and can now take action." Although I had known the purpose of this Taiwanese man for a long time, I couldn't help but give him 2 more glances. This man is really tough. Just doing business, for the sake of money, you have to spend money to buy someone's life. Later on, he didn't end up with a good ending, but that's what happened later. Azantuo nodded at him upon hearing the words. As agreed upon in advance, Kunpeng and I will defend our formation and protect Azantuo's safety. As we wrapped the last round of thread around the lit candles, Azantuo put all the things he had obtained from wealthy Taiwanese businessmen into his magic tools. As he recited the mantra, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew from the previously windless field, causing the candles to shake wildly. Then, they tilted and swayed in a tilted manner, seemingly determining the direction. Azantuo took the opportunity to look in the direction. In an instant, he bit his middle finger and, accompanied by the incessant mantras in his mouth, he dripped blood into the magical tool. At this moment, there was a sudden gust of wind, and the Taiwanese boss was so scared that he had already run back into the car, while Kunpeng and I sat cross-legged next to Azan, guarding him. As the sound of the mantras in his mouth grew faster and stronger, the wind gradually enveloped him. I felt the wind blowing on my face, accompanied by sand and stones, leaving a painful trail on my face. Suddenly, the sound of the mantras came to an abrupt end, accompanied by a large black shadow emerging from Azantuo's body. They churned in the air a few times, transforming into a human head shape. In the moment of my surprise, this black shadow had already flown rapidly in a direction. The speed is very fast. At this moment, countless black shadows suddenly surged towards us from all directions. These were all kinds of untamed and scattered ghosts in the world. Kunpeng had told me that this kind of occasion particularly provoked these ghosts. A body without a master was extremely tempting for them. As Kunpeng was already reciting the exorcism mantra to protect his body, I also followed suit. This mantra was handed over to me these days and asked me to memorize it. Outside the formation, with the wind and shadows surrounding and invading, the candlelight became flickering bright and dark. As I experienced this situation for the first time, I couldn't help but burst into a cold sweat. As time passed by minute by second, I followed Kunpeng and kept reciting the exorcism mantra. However, the number of ghosts outside did not decrease, but rather increased. Some even extinguished a few candles. I panicked and followed Kunpeng to quickly light the candles that had been extinguished around me. This was also what Tuobazan had instructed in advance. If they were extinguished, they should be lit in a timely manner, and the mantra in my mouth did not stop. I was extremely scared in my heart, but seeing Kunpeng's calm and composed demeanor, I knew he must not have experienced such a thing for the first time. Time became particularly long, and after an unknown amount of time, my throat was hoarse and almost speechless, and the candles were almost burned out. Azantuo still didn't move, and I couldn't help but worry about him. At that moment, the big, black-headed thing flew back and disappeared when it landed on Azantuo. Azantuo then vomited a large puddle of blood and fell to the ground. Kunpeng and I quickly helped him. "How's it going, master?" Kunpeng asked in a deep voice. Azantuo spat out another mouthful of blood, feeling extremely weak, as if he had aged over 10 years. Suddenly, a large wound appeared on his forehead, bleeding profusely. I quickly found a piece of cloth to hold the wound for him. At this moment, the wealthy Taiwanese man also got off the car and ran towards us, anxiously asking, "Master Azantuo, how have things been going?" When he saw Azantuo with a face full of blood, he was also startled. "How did you do this? How did you make yourself like this?" Azantuo slowly opened his eyes and said intermittently, "I think it's a success. You can call your eyeliner to confirm, cough. When I flew over, he was resting in his bedroom, but his tempered glass was too hard, which made me lose my strength. When I broke the glass, it was too noisy. Although I was successful, I'm afraid his family would not let us go so easily. Cough, 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 and cough again. Upon hearing that it was already successful, the wealthy Taiwanese businessman was very happy and quickly went to the side to take out his phone to make a call. Not long after, he returned happily and said to Azantuo, "The matter has been done. His family is now in chaos, and the ambulance and police car have all arrived. It's really hard for you." Hearing this, my heart was very complicated. Although I have been getting along well with Tuobazan and Kunpeng during this time, and they have been very good to me, their way of seeking wealth and killing lives has made me very disgusted. Azantuo nodded at the words of the wealthy Taiwanese businessman and said he needed to go back and rest. Having accomplished this great task, the wealthy Taiwanese businessman was very happy and said he must treat us to a big meal before going out to find a place to have a party, and then pay us the final payment. Azantuo naturally cannot go. He has suffered a great deal from this incident and needs to go back to rest. Kunpeng also doesn't like those places, so he asked me to follow this wealthy Taiwanese businessman and bring back the final payment. This wealthy Taiwanese businessman sent Azantuo and Kunpeng back to their residence, and then drove me to a luxurious hotel in Bangkok. Although there were only the two of us, he also generously ordered a large table of seafood. During our time of drinking and eating, I also had some understanding with this wealthy Taiwanese businessman. He told me that his surname was Zhou and his name was Zhou Kaiyuan. He had opened several food processing factories in Thailand and had done well in the past few years. However, in recent years, due to pressure from his peers, business has been very poor. That's the enemy he spoke of, whose surname is Zhong and his name is Zhong Jianchang. They are all Taiwanese. More than a decade ago, when Zhong Jianchang first came to Thailand, he was still a poor person, and Zhou Kaiyuan was about 10 years older than Zhong Jianchang. At that time, he had already been in Thailand for many years, running a large food factory and doing business very well. Zhong Jianchang worked in his factory, and because he worked very hard, he gradually achieved the position of sales manager. Originally, Zhou Kaiyuan had a good relationship with him, but seeing the factory's benefits getting better and better, Zhong Jianchang was no longer satisfied with the compensation he received as a sales manager. He felt that Zhou Kaiyuan's factory did a good job and he had a great credit for it. He wanted Zhou Kaiyuan to give him a commission. At first, Zhou Kaiyuan felt that he was indeed working hard and agreed, but Zhong Jianchang was repeatedly dissatisfied. In the end, he poached several technical backbones from the company and took away the clients to establish a new portal. At first, Zhou Kaiyuan didn't care about Zhong Jianchang's departure and establishment of a new portal, and didn't think he could do much better because his company had a core technology formula. Even if others could steal the technology, without the formula, it was not enough to be afraid. What Zhou Kaiyuan didn't expect was that Zhong Jianchang had his mind set on his only daughter, Zhou Ru, in order to obtain the recipe. A few years ago, Zhou Ru had just turned 20 and was still studying. Due to his busy work schedule, he neglected his family. When he found out, it was already too late. Zhong Jianchang asked Zhou Ru, who was already pregnant, to steal the recipe from Zhou Kaiyuan's safe. This daughter, who was overwhelmed by love, not only gave the recipe to Zhong Jianchang, but was also instigated by Zhong Jianchang to cut off her father-daughter relationship. Since then, Zhou Ru stopped attending school and moved directly to Zhong Jianchang's house, which made Zhou Kaiyuan very angry. But what made him even more angry was still ahead. Zhong Jianchang got Zhou Kaiyuan's formula business and it became increasingly prosperous, with more and more transactions and low-priced shipments. The monopoly on raw materials constantly suppressed Zhou Kaiyuan, while Zhou Ru, who stole the formula, was not as good as Zhong Jianchang had imagined. When she was pregnant, Zhong Jianchang often left her alone at home on the grounds of busy work. After giving birth to the child, Zhong Jianchang stayed up all night, indulging in extravagance and drunkenness. Once he got drunk and went home, and because the child cried in the middle of the night, he directly threw the child to the ground, which made Zhou Ru very angry. Sad, arguing with him, but in exchange for Zhong Jianchang's punches and kicks. Chapter 8. Closing Payment. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 9. Prohibition Curse. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Originally, when Zhong Jianchang was taken to the hospital by his family last night, he had already died. The hospital's conclusion was that he died suddenly due to a heart attack, but the Zhong family did not agree with this result and unanimously believed that Zhong Jianchang was killed by someone. For the views of the Zhong family, the police did not have any strong evidence. They retrieved all the surveillance footage and did not find any suspicious individuals entering Zhong Jianchang's home that day. As for the broken glass in his room, the police have no clue at the moment. And Zhong Jianchang's newly married wife is a native Thai. She feels that her husband must have been killed by someone, and has offered a heavy reward. Please go and explore the truth from all masters in Azan. This morning, an old client called and didn't know that Azantuo was responsible for this matter. He told him about it and hoped that he and Azantuo could take on the investigation work and make some money together. Kunpeng speculated that he had recently gone to another city with Azantuo, but it was not easy to cover it up. As long as he had used black magic, he would definitely be noticed by someone with magical power. With such advanced magic, only a few people knew it, and I believe we will soon find out about it. Kunpeng said that he and Azantuo were preparing to go out to avoid the limelight and asked me to return to my home country first. The money I owed them before was not only written off, but also given me an additional 100,000 Thai baht, which moved me very much because they not only helped me pay off my debt in this short time, but also gave me so much money. I feel extremely hot holding this money because I know how it came from. And I couldn't persuade Azantuo and Kunpeng to stop here either, because Kunpeng had told me before that once this road is taken, it can only lead to darkness. And Azantuo and Kunpeng packed their things, said goodbye to me, and hurriedly left the bamboo tower. In this situation, I naturally didn't dare to stay much and immediately bought a plane ticket to return to my home country. The plane ticket was booked for the next day, so I called Brother Tao and asked if he was available the next day to take me to the airport. Brother Tao readily agreed. So, I stayed overnight in the bamboo tower, and the next day, a Tao came to pick me up. I also embarked on a journey back to my home country from then on. On the way to the airport, after chatting with a Tao for a while, I thought of Zhou Kaiyuan and felt inexplicably uneasy, so I called him. The phone rang a few times and was answered, "Brother Lu Yu, what can I do for you?" Because there was also Brother Ateo next to him, he didn't say much, just asked him, "Brother Zhou, have you heard anything about the Zhong Jianchang family these past few days?" Zhou Kaiyuan said, "Brother Lu Yu, I also know about Zhong Jianchang's family." Hearing that he said he already knew, I put down the dim sum and said to him, "Brother Zhou, pay attention to your safety recently. I'm on my way home. Are you ready to go back? Alright, I wish you a pleasant journey. When you return to Thailand, let me know and I'll pick you up." I agreed in response and then hung up the phone. Quickly, I arrived at the airport. Say goodbye to a Tao and board the return flight. After returning, I went straight back to school. Apart from the cost of the plane ticket, I still had extra money. I paid back all the money I had borrowed from my friends before and even invited them to have a meal at a restaurant near the school. They asked me why I stayed in Thailand for so long, and I found a reason. I said I had a fight with someone, injured them, and worked there to compensate. After paying back the money, I came back. I won't mention anything else about Azantuo. During the banquet, Lao Qin asked me about my relationship with Bai Shui. I said, "We haven't been in touch for a while." Perhaps my expression was relatively indifferent, and they were also sensible and didn't ask too much, continuing to drink and chat. Since I learned about Bai Shui, I haven't had any contact with her, and I haven't deleted her. During this time, she has sent me many messages, but I haven't replied. I think the farewell of adults should be silent. I didn't delete her, but after all, she is the girl I really liked before. In my heart, I reserved this place for her. Not long after, graduation arrived, and our good brothers went their separate ways. However, I couldn't find a suitable job, so I had to go home first. My hometown is Weihai, Shandong, a small city by the sea. When I got home, my parents were very happy. Every day after work, they would cook me a lot of delicious food. I was very comfortable at home, lying at home for several days. During this time, I also sent a message to Kunpeng, telling him that I had arrived home and asked about their recent situation. However, I did not receive a reply and did not bother anymore, thinking that we would no longer have contact. After my observation for a while, I felt that there might really be a problem with my body, so that morning, I went to a men's hospital while my parents were not at home. Line up, register, and pay. I am in the Department of Male Reproductive Health. It was around 10 o'clock when I arrived at the consultation room. There was a male doctor who inquired about my situation and conducted a series of tests on me. The results showed that everything was normal and he said I might be too nervous. Let me go back and observe. I don't agree with the doctor's opinion and cannot argue, so I have to go home first. After returning, I went to several hospitals one after another, and the results were similar. The doctors also prescribed many medications for me, most of which were for soothing the mood, calming the mind, and nourishing the brain. I took them for a while but found no effect. Gradually, I realized that something seemed to be wrong. I began to ponder whether Azantuo would be able to cure me, so I continued to call Kunpeng and send messages. The phone was always turned off, and the messages were still not replied to. Finally, on this day, I was lying on the sofa at home, bored and watching TV. My phone rang and it turned out to be Kunpeng. I quickly connected. Kunpeng, why haven't there been any news in so many days? Is everything okay? I asked anxiously. Oh, Master Azantuo and I are in Myanmar. My phone stopped working a while ago, and I only paid the bill today. I saw that you sent so many messages, so I called you. What's up with you? I hesitated and gave him a rough overview of my situation, but he burst into laughter on the other end of the phone. And when I heard him smile on the phone, I felt even more embarrassed and said, Brother Kunpeng, don't laugh at me anymore. Can you help me ask my master if there is any way to cure me? Brother Lu Yu, you have been cursed by your master. What? Prohibition curse. What is this thing? How come I don't know? When did this happen? I was shocked and couldn't believe that Azantuo would curse me. The last time Master Azantuo gave you a talisman, he cast this spell on you. All those who practice black magic must have a clear mind and few desires. You are his only personal disciple and the virgin body of Yang Qi. In order for you to practice better, Master has specially cast this spell on you. Don't disappoint Master's heart, and during this time, you should also recite the scriptures well at home. Strive to become a top-notch black-clothed Azan like Master as soon as possible. Upon hearing Kunpeng say so, I suddenly felt thunderous. What kind of cultivator does not cultivate? I never thought about being a black-clothed Azan, so I couldn't help but get angry and cursed. I'm Chow. My family has several generations of solo biographies, why didn't he just castrate me without telling me? Did I agree to this? Kunpeng was very angry and said, don't you want to become a top black mage like Azantuo? I'll tell you, this forbidden curse is almost lost, and currently only Azantuo's master is skilled. How many people who practice black magic cannot resist the temptation of the world and cannot improve their cultivation? I said straightforwardly, Brother Kunpeng, I know you and Master Azantuo treat me very well, but I really don't want to become a black mage. I just want to be an ordinary person. I've been tormented by this recently. I thought I had a big problem with my body, and this is really important to me. Can you help me ask Master Azantuo if he can help me solve it? After a moment of silence on the other end of the phone, he said, Brother Lu Yu, it's not easy for a black mage to unravel a spell. Master Azantuo must have his intention when he curses you. If you really don't want to be bound by this spell, you can ask him next time you see Azantuo. When I heard it could be untied, I breathed a sigh of relief and asked, when can I see you next time? We can't go back to Thailand for now. Let's wait for the wind to pass and find a chance to meet. Chapter 10. Wang Fang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I sighed helplessly. Afterwards, Kunpeng asked me what I was doing recently, and I told him that I had graduated and am currently in my hometown in Shandong. Ask me again if I have found a job. I answered truthfully, not yet, I've been running to the hospital lately. Upon hearing this, Kunpeng smiled awkwardly. He said, I am currently in Myanmar with Azantuo. If you can run errands to help us with the delivery in the future, we will pay you the compensation. I thought to myself, since I don't have anything to do now, so I agreed, sure. Upon receiving my answer, Kunpeng said, okay, then wait for my message. A few days later, Kunpeng called me and asked me to help him deliver a batch of Buddha plaques to Guangzhou. I said, it's so convenient to mail now, why don't you directly send it to the other party? Kunpeng said that his cooperation model with the vast majority of clients is to pay a deposit first and then conduct face-to-face transactions. But now, he and Azantuo are unable to appear, so he wants me to deliver the goods for them. I told him that I am in Shandong, and the cost of traveling to Guangzhou for one trip is several thousand yuan. Taking the high-speed rail also costs about 2,000 yuan. Kunpeng thought for a moment and said, this batch of Buddha plaques only costs 20,000 yuan in total. I'll give you a quarter, you can take 5,000 yuan, and I won't care about the other expenses. I grasp, this is too much. In total, after deducting the cost of transportation, food and accommodation, there is still a lot left. This is much more than what I earn when running errands in Thailand. So, I immediately agreed to him. Later, I sent him my address, phone number, and name together. A few days later, the goods were sent from abroad. After receiving them, I called Kunpeng and asked for their phone number and some information. I met this customer Wang Fang when we were delivering goods together in Kunming before. After a phone conversation, I booked a train ticket to Guangzhou. The train, which lasted for over 30 hours and lasted for almost 2 days, really confused me. That afternoon, around 1 o'clock, I arrived in Guangzhou and got off the train. I called Wang Fang and told him that I had arrived. But Wang Fang said he was a bit busy in the store now and couldn't leave, so he couldn't pick me up. He asked me to take a taxi directly and said he would treat me to a big dinner tonight. I said it's okay, I'll go by myself. Then he sent me the location, and as soon as I saw it was not far away, I took a taxi directly to the place. Wang Fang's Buddha brand store is located in Liwan district, Guangzhou. The store name is Jinyan Taibao, and the sign is very large and eye-catching. When I arrived at his store, there was indeed a customer there. Wang Fang was explaining how to choose Buddha brands to the customer, and when he saw me coming, he greeted me and asked me to sit on the nearby sofa waiting for him. I sat on the sofa, waiting for him while looking at his shop. Wang Fang's Buddha brand store was decorated very well, about 80 square meters, with various Buddha signs on both sides of the counter. On one side of the wall shelf, there were various Thai Buddha statues, which looked very solemn and dignified. Not long after, the customer selected a Buddha card, paid for it, and left. Wang Fang then came to find me. Business is good, brother Wang Fang, I said with a smile. Hi, where? It's just a matter of making a living. It's been hard for you to come from Shandong by car. Upon hearing him say this, I quickly waved my hand and said, next time I won't take a train anymore. I'll take a plane. It's been over 30 hours, and I've been sitting for a long time. Upon hearing this, Wang burst into laughter. He poured me a cup of tea and sat across from me. Then, I took the goods out of my backpack and showed them to him for inspection. There are a total of 6 items this time, and Kunpeng had already explained them before coming. The first one is a golden-eyed baby handkerchief made of bay materials, the second one is a Yentong statue with a male and female embracing posture, the third one is a spirit-brave statue, the fourth one is a male elder statue, and there are also 2 luge statues made of spirits, which are also a type of ancient man, a child who died young before being born. Fang looked at them one by one, nodded very satisfied, and then asked me to wait for him. He took the goods to a nearby safe, took out the key from his pocket, opened the cabinet, put the goods in, and took a large stack of cash from it. He handed me the money and said, "Brother Lu Yu, here is the final payment. Please click on it." I took the money and counted it. 17,000 yuan. "Mr. Wang, did you give him an extra?" Kunpeng told me that Mr. Wang had paid him a deposit of 5,000 yuan before, so I should have collected 15,000 yuan. Fang waved his hand and said indifferently, "Brother, you've worked hard all the way, and the extra money can be considered your hard work. How about that, one size fits all? There will be more troubles for you in the future, so don't be polite." Upon hearing this, I had no choice but to put the money away. After sitting for a while and chatting for a while, I finally found out that Fang has several stores in Guangzhou, and he usually hires staff to take care of them. However, the staff of his store took a leave a while ago and couldn't find anyone for a while, so he had to watch for himself. He told me that he has known Azantuo for a long time because he knows Chinese and his products are cheap and good, so he often comes to him to buy them. When asked how I got to know Azantuo again, I explained from beginning to end about Azantuo taking me as his disciple and how I had cursed him. It was originally just a joke, but unexpectedly, when Azantuo took me as his disciple, the old fox squinted its eyes and looked incredulous. "Then you should have learned a lot of skills from Master Azantuo later on." Upon hearing this, I was honest and said, "I haven't been in Thailand for long, and I've only been there for over a month. I only know a little bit of mantras, and I haven't practiced during this time. I can't even remember." And when Fang heard this, he actually grabbed my hand and said, "Brother, you've been a big help to me." I was startled by the sudden situation and quickly broke free from his hand, saying, "Brother Wang, what's wrong with you? Brother, you must help me." His hand not only didn't let go, but also became tighter and tighter. "Brother Wang, if you have anything to do, just let me know. I will definitely help if I can." Fang finally let go of my hand and said excitedly, "Half a month ago, a female customer came to my store and wanted to buy a Buddha card. I asked her what effect she needed, and she told me she wanted a card that could attract both wealth and emotions. So, I recommended several legitimate cards to her, but after listening to my introduction one by one, she asked me if I had any negative cards. She said she heard from a friend that she had bought negative cards in my store before, and the effect was very good. When I heard that it was introduced by an old customer, I didn't think much about it. I took out a part of the negative cards in the safe and showed her about a dozen Buddha cards. She said, "I have a crush on that female spirit. Is it the piece that Kunpeng and I sold to you before?" Fang nodded and continued, "Yes, that's it. I think she looks quite wealthy in her attire. She sold it to her for 300,000 yuan at the time."